Disclaimer. No data subjects were harmed in the making of this podcast. Welcome to the Privacy Bar and Bants podcast. We make privacy awareness simple. Sit back, relax, and grab your darkest privacy myths and misconceptions. Your mind-boggling experience begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Our lovely
drink
CEO
water.
and
So,
Yetunde.
Anyway,
Right,
so who
because
am I? I'm
you
Yetunde
are.
Industrial.
next question. Next.
Hello, people of the PBB world, the seriously and serious audience
Hi,
members that
everyone.
we have. How is everybody's week going?
Well, my week was amazing, and okay, no, that's not true. My week wasn't amazing. It wasn't a great week, actually. It wasn't a great week. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't a great week, but we hope the coming week will be better.
This is why it does not pay to tell lies. You know when you tell a lie and then you realize that you've told a lie.
The week has been great. Quite a number of things kept me really busy this week. But yeah, it's I look forward to whatever it is you have in stock for me. Whatever it is you have in stock for me today.
You know, the fun thing is, Dolapo, please, can you tell them about our little trap for Ridwan?
Our little
Trap for Ridwan.
I don't know what you're talking about. Trap for Ridwan.
Well,
Me,
okay,
myself.
fine.
I don't know what you're talking about.
If you're not, it's okay. If you're not mischievous, me, I am. So we told Ridwan. In fact, we told Ridwan he's coming to do an episode. We told him nothing about like what he'll be doing on the episode. So this is literally a blind episode. Like Ridwan has no clue what we have for him, but we have something amazing. Like he's not going to believe it. He'll be shook. You know. So actually, before we go on, we should probably introduce Ridwan as well. Dolapo, am I the one taking the honors, or is it you? Who is the person that's going to do the?
I cannot. I cannot.
Okay,
Please,
I'm
just go ahead.
happy. I'm happy to do this on behalf of both of us. So, I bring to you Ridwan Oloyede. Ridwan is a CIPM certified privacy practitioner who has earned the distinguished status of a fellow in privacy, the coveted FIP. Haha. He is our executive producer here at Privacy and Bants. He's also Dolly's Oga at Tech Hive because he's the tech policy lead. He's a research fellow at the African Academic Network on Internet Policy. He was also the legal influencer of the year, TMT. So we have privacy royalty in the house. Dolapo, how are you feeling? Global champion. What's that word that you always say? Dolapo, what's that word you always say? The shape, the course. Abi was the Dolapo now. What's that word you always say? Abi that phrase.
So I can't remember it, but I know what you're talking about.
How do you guys know? You're recording all these things for a global audience.
Yes, we know we are. We are very aware. But we bring to you the amazing Ridwan Oloyede for free. You didn't have to pay for a ticket to watch him or listen to him. We brought him your way free. I think we deserve a round of applause for this great honor that we have. This great service we have done humanity. It's not easy to book time with our executive producer.
Telling that girl to cut away all these parts.
Anyway, so Ridwan, welcome to the podcast as a guest member. I'll be a member as a guest. You're a very special guest indeed. So I guess that we will probably start with our time honor that be our most important segment, the tradition of the Privacy Bants podcast, which is the rapid fire segment. So Ridwan, in this segment you have to answer as many privacy related questions in under 1 minute, in within 1 minute anyway. So I will leave Dolly to do us the service of reading you the questions whilst I would provide the timer.
Make sure you read the questions very well.
So
Are
This
you
is a
ready?
very hot seat you are on, Ridwan.
Are you ready?
All
Ridwan,
right, let's
before
go.
we go on, you know that you are very important to me, and this shouldn't, this rapid fire session shouldn't determine our relationship after, let's no bad blood, no bad blood.
All right.
Anyway,
So timer set.
yes, timer set. Do you have the questions ready, Dolapo?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Ridwan, your time starts. Are you ready, Ridwan?
Yeah.
Your time starts now.
How many countries in the world have privacy regulations? You can skip.
Slightly above 160 now. Yeah, go on.
What is the most important data protection principle?
I'm a big fan of fairness.
How many legal bases for processing ordinary data are provided in the GDPR?
6.
How many data protection principles are under the GDPR?
7. Well, 9
What
actually.
is your worst privacy nightmare?
We take your privacy seriously.
Okay, what does CIPM stand for?
Certified Information Privacy Manager.
What does IAPP stand for?
International Association of Privacy Professionals.
Which one actually got almost all our answers correctly?
So
We did
this
not
is what
state this
what.
properly.
Wow, I really thought we were doing something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Do you know what? Okay, well, I don't know.
Yes.
I actually wasn't because I was so taken aback by how many questions you were getting right. I don't even think I counted how many questions he answered
So he
correctly.
got six
I
questions right.
Oh wow, 6. Quiz counting. Anyway, see, I thought we were really doing something, right? And then clearly we didn't. But anyway, we move. Delakbo, we'll still catch him. There's something else. We've laid another trap in front. Don't
Yeah.
think that you can go. Don't think that you have won because you have managed to, scale the first fence. There's
All
still
weapon
many
fashioned
others.
against me
It
prosper.
shall prosper.
You are the weapon fashioned against me.
Shall prosper. Exactly. Shall prosper. Anyway, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I
Yeah.
think I need time to
So
recover. Dollar, please take
for
over.
every episode, we get to ask our audience, like, or sorry, our guests, what's like your biggest privacy myth, like something that people say about privacy that's totally untrue, right? But it's widely said.
Definitely for me, top of the list would be what do I have to lose? It's a phrase I hear a lot. What do I have to lose? And you know, people I've heard people say things like, is it not just giving up my information or just filling up a form? And for those who are actually obsessed with completing every information line in the form, I know the question is always, what do I have to lose? So yeah, I find that really, really weird. And I hear sometimes, privacy professionals also, say it is that some privacy professionals say it is that when people ask about or when they try and get opinion of privacy professionals about what can they do to stop privacy violation. People tend to say things like, "Oh, read the privacy notice."
Hmm.
But then, yeah, you can read the privacy notice. But then, what if the privacy notice is not genuinely reflective of processing activities? It's useless.
Hmm.
It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the data subject, for example. It doesn't help. It doesn't inform because I mean, not even where we've done multiple research and we've seen situations where a privacy notice says something and something else is being done, whether technically or even from a product point of view, or
Yeah.
situations where privacy notices are auto-generated, they are templates, they are
Hmm.
copycats of some other notices that doesn't maybe really fit the context of the processing itself.
Hmm.
So if a notice is not generally reflective of the processing activities, it's useless. It's not informing. Of course, you can argue it's a violation of transparency principle, but the point I'm making is the thing about you know privacy notice being that thing that would truly inform people and can take away people's pain point about privacy violation. I think it needs to stop.
So I totally agree, right? I think our last guest talked about he said his biggest was what's the big deal with privacy? Like, why should it matter to me, right? So what does privacy mean to the common man? And these things are really are really stuff that we hear people say every day. So really true.
If I can add one more,
Sure.
Oh yes, please. Please feel free.
something else I would also like to say is, the role of privacy notices being framed as contract or agreements.
Mm.
I think that's something else that also, you hear conversations like, oh, you agreed to the privacy notice or to the privacy policy. And if you look at provision of most data protection laws that creates the obligation to either specifically have a privacy notice or talks about transparency as a principle, or basically just say, before you commence processing, these are the information you should provide.
Mm.
There is none, you hardly see any of these provisions. I have not seen any of these provisions, especially, I've looked at literally most laws in Africa, for example, and I never see any of these provisions say, you know, the data subjects must agree to it.
Mm.
So that's something else I think needs to stop. It's
Oh.
it's a legal obligation. Provide those information. No one needs to agree to whatever it is that you
But I think something I was gonna pick up on the first one that you mentioned. So I remember like there was a research that I saw, and it was talking about how actually not only is it that you struggle with the issue that privacy notices can't, they don't often contain all the information, or they don't contain information that is accurate sometimes, or that they're templates, but also there's the element that privacy notices are also difficult to read. And I know that like a lot of the legislations are geared towards making companies or organizations come up with creative ways to give you a privacy notice so that you don't get bored, or it's not boring, or but I think that a lot of people just generally still struggle with it because it's the length of it. It's like sometimes it's the amount of information and the links here and there. And I just wanted to say like that was a really good point, and just because of also that I heard as well. Or read.
I was even going to pick up on the first issue, right? What would you now say would be a good way for data subjects to not protect themselves? Because I mean, reading a privacy notice is definitely not it.
not like the advice is completely useless, but I think it's just context, right?
Yeah.
It may be useful if, for example, the notice genuinely informs. It means the data subject then knows, okay, this is the purpose, this is the lawful basis, this is all of those informations that the data subjects might need. But then talking about how to stop violation, we don't have one single solution. You don't have a single solution that solves the entire problem. It's a multi-pronged approach,
True.
from you reducing your digital footprint, you using privacy preserving solutions, to also choosing tools, vendors, service providers that you use, to, of course, also reading these notices, to using so many privacy preserving options or even settings on your own device. So it's a lot of and that's it's not an exhaustive list. It's a multi-pronged approach to really keeping your online life, as as private as possible, or if that's what people want. But then preserving your data in the sense that you want some sort of data protection in that sense. But then the only way to truly the digital world is not to be part of it.
So that is actually very interesting. So, but do you reckon that it's possible in this day and age to really, really stay away from it? It feels like it's in every single part of your life.
Well, I know maybe 100% no, because of course, even if you do exist nowhere, you likely exist on a government database. But I know people who have made genuine efforts to have very limited digital footprint. You'd never find them on search engines.
Oh
Hmm.
wow.
They've made really genuine efforts to keep very limited digital footprint. I've met one of such persons before, and it's really incredible. It's really incredible. It's really incredible. That's all I can say. But it takes a lot of effort, because you need to be conscious. You need to know everything. It
Hmm.
means you also deprivation of a lot of things. You
Yeah.
can't use an online vendor. You can, or at least you won't be using your real name or purchasing using your card, for example, and all stuff. I think it takes by design. Being private. Privacy conscious by design. If there's anything like that, it's a lot
But
of
the
effort that needs
I
to
mean,
go
I think
into it.
this is like
the
another
reason
conversation altogether. Like, it's probably something we need to do an episode on, honestly.
But then the other thing for me is that is this this approach, this far like pushing it, and it's not. I don't use extreme in the word of in the sense of it's negative, but extreme in the sense of the amount of deprivation you have to do. Is that really like possible for for the average man? Like I understand we privacy people, we kind of understand, what mundane pieces of data can do to you or what happens when this happens when this. So we kind of have an idea, but I think it would
defeats
take
the
quite a
whole
lot
purpose
of
of technology in some, yeah,
honestly.
to a large extent.
I mean, the average person cannot be like, the yardstick, because first we have difficulty defining who the average person is.
Mm,
So, but then it's again, this is also things that are really subjective. There are really no straight rules. It's again, what do you want? You want to be truly or fully, limit your digital footprint, or do you want to partially limit your digital footprint? So there are safeguards to actually even control your footprint, which means you can also control, the part of you that can be online. Being able to invoke rights when you need to invoke them, being able to use again privacy preserving tools from browsers to plugins to all sort of things that can really help, or even settings that can help you really minimize, people creating profile or being able to target you or monitor your online behavior. So it takes a lot, to be honest, but then it takes being informed as well, because then you know the right solution, you know what the product is doing, you know how the product is, how the product works, the privacy preserving solutions, the privacy preserving offerings, even the kind of phone that you use, for example.
mm.
You know, is it a phone that maybe some of the default applications that comes with it are embedded with targeting trackers? So it's a lot of information, and it may probably almost look like a cycle or something, or so you have some sort of obsession. But yeah, it takes a lot and a lot of effort to to be able to create that life.
But to be honest, I can't really judge people who choose that, because to be honest, it's the amount of advertising that comes your way that I think probably like it's almost so specific. It kind of is scary for me. I think that's probably the one thing I would say. Like if there was a reason why, just off the top of my head, without even giving you proper thinking, that I would really really like to put an end today to any sort of my or limit my digital footprint, it would be because I'm just sick and tired of getting almost spot on advertising for some of the things that I need.
Whether you need them or you don't.
Interesting. No, interestingly, I mean, I really have I don't have a bad relationship with advertising. I mean, think about how long it's actually going to take you to find the things that you need if you need to shop online. So, but I
Me,
think where we have concern is whether it's been done responsibly or not. But the innovation itself, I think just like any other innovation, depending on who's on the stakes, it can either be, for good or for what other purpose or objective. So I don't think advertisement itself is really, it's really, I mean, that horrible thing. But I think we're only concerned when we may only be, I am only concerned when it's not, maybe done responsibly in that sense.
For this episode, you're basically going to have 21 questions. We're going to ask you 21 questions, right? Nothing serious, just general privacy stuff, but it's 21 questions. And yeah, in you have there are three rules, or there's one rule, right? You have three lifelines. You can phone a friend, you can ask the hosts, that's I and Yetunde, and you can donate something or you can give out something to the audience, right? So you pick if you can answer the question and you finish your lifelines, you have to donate something or give out something to the audience, right? So are we is
How do
this
you
do we
come up with
agree?
things like this? This is not fairness.
Sorry? I can
This
hear
is not
you.
fairness.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Interesting.
No,
All
but
right,
we're
let's
giving
do
you
this.
three lifelines, so I mean it couldn't be more fair.
I mean, how can giving out something be a lifeline? And it's at the same time punishment for not getting a question right.
Well, that's why we're the
Who
host.
made these rules? Okay, well, I guess you're only staying consistent with what you've told me earlier today. You being the weapon fashioned against me. So yeah, right on
uh,
brand.
actually. And the funny thing is, I actually put this episode last night. Like we were just having a random call, and she was checking up on me, And we said, oh, we're having Ridwan tomorrow. And we planned the episode in like 20 minutes. And in that 20 minutes, we're plotting.
Genius.
We're not planning, we're plotting this episode. Yeah. So I think we'll just start, right? So our first question is, what's your biggest privacy concern? All right.
I mean, there's a long list of things that are considered pain points, but what I'd say is scares me sometimes is the level of awareness. I think is actually incredibly low. Awareness is a multidimensional awareness, and it depends, exactly where I speak from. People who don't know, the businesses who don't know, the businesses who are making efforts but not doing the right thing. Then you also talk about sometimes the regulatory approach, to things as well. So I would say that multidimensional lack of awareness, I think, is probably one of the biggest existential, threats to privacy as a right, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, I totally agree. And I loved when you said multidimensional issue, right? Because sometimes you just feel like the regulators are not really sure what to do. The organizations, a lot of these organizations and companies are also sort of trying to figure out what to do. And then there's now a general lack of knowledge amongst like the data subjects and generally everyone, right? So there's still like a lot of knowledge, there's still a lot of things to be learned when it comes to the privacy field. Yeah. So I totally agree with you. So
I think, again, one of the biggest concerns I have is, when people make efforts to put privacy measures in place, but it's being poorly implemented, and then it creates bigger problem that they're trying to prevent. And I say this when I see things like cookie banners, which is actually meant to give people options, but still really don't, give options in that sense. And there are so many examples that I can continue to give. So I think the summary is those efforts being put in place to do something to solve a problem, but then creates more problem, but in the privacy context now. So that's one of the things, or one of the biggest nightmares that I have.
I mean, this your concern reminds me of our first episode where we talked about a school feeling like they want a school who tried to overinterpret the GDPR, and what they did in that instance was to remove everybody's surname. So they started adding attaching numbers to people's names. So, for example, if there were two people named Jack in the class, it would be Jack 1 and Jack 2. And by the way, guys, Yetunde wrote Dolly 1 on my birthday card. I was going to talk about this. But I mean, I forgive you, Yetunde. I forgive you.
this is not the question we planned for you, but yeah, thank you for sharing your biggest privacy concern with us. I think the next question for me will be, if you could instantly solve one privacy concern, which would it be? Like instantly.
It has to be the problem of transparency,
Hmm.
because just one word. If we can solve transparency, I think we make meaningful progress. I mean, everyone is like fully clear on what they do and is genuinely reflective of what they do.
And yeah, but the question really is, how are we going to solve it?
That's the problem. So if you ask what's the problem, transparency, how am I going to solve it? I don't think. I mean, I probably don't have a clear cut strategy right now. But if it's, if there's some sort of magical wand that can just, solve that particular problem, that's one problem I'll pick.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Um, so this is more of a general question, right? If you could divide the things you do with your time into percentages, right? What would you allocate to what, right? So maybe say like the maybe most five most important things to you or 10 most important things to you, and I'll give them like percentages.
Okay. So I think I'll generally like put things in different buckets. So family, my professional life, um, what I do, like people I consider my circle. Then the other bits will be my life as someone who is curious, as maybe a researcher, and
We
I
don't
don't know
have to put them in percentages though.
what the last bits will be.
Yeah.
So for family, for me, definitely
Mhm.
family comes top of everything for me, and I would say it's hard to put in a percentage because I always love to share, but yeah.
Okay, so just to guys, my name is also Oloyede. I'm part of Ridwan's family. Just so everybody knows.
So yeah, my family is like more than half of my life, but because I need to, spread things around, so I need to pass the percentages around. So I'd say, let's say 50% of my life. Then I typically like to consider myself a lazy person, but often than not, I find my work also, taking up a big space in my life because I love what I do. That's maybe 100% honest. I love what I do. I'm constantly looking for the next thing to do at the same time. So yeah, I'd say maybe another 25% thereabouts. I'm big on my circle, and my circle is really so important to me. Those are like the people, the connections, the network, so to say. So I'm really a big person on my circle. I think I guide that jealously. So let's say maybe another 15%. Um, then I have 10 more left to give out. I can't remember the last two buckets of what I'm giving that to. But maybe the curious me wants to solve problems. Maybe I give that another 10. Then 5 I give to nothingness. That's the period where I do nothing. Absolutely nothing.
If you had a wish to change one thing in an African country's regulation and privacy regulation, what would it be and what country?
If I hear you clearly, what would I like to change in some African data protection laws? It
Yes.
definitely has to be the requirement to register. It definitely has to be the requirement to register. Because there's this thing I call tick box Olympics, where I think people get obsessed with things like registration, filing documents, and it gives a false sense of safety, it gives a false sense of adherence that they're actually complying. Yes, you're complying with that specific requirement. The registration requirements, definitely, I would like to see it, taken out of so many laws because yes, people, go around say PR things like, oh yes, we've registered, we've complied with the law, it shows we've complied, and they even issued a press statement and stuff like that. And I recently wrote about it, where I talked about things like audit report, registration requirements, or some sort of wide safety lifts that regulators create, and now it creates a false sense of adherence from organizational point of view. So again, we don't have any empirical evidence that suggests that countries where registration that has registration requirements, record higher compliance rates than countries who don't. And so these are like, if there's something I would like to take out, that's something I would definitely want to see. RIP registration.
But I mean, this is like the approach most data protection regulators in Africa have taken. I mean, do you have like any, just in case there's probably someone from the regulators listening to this episode, do you have any suggestions as to what approach you think they should be taking?
Maybe not most. I mean, as a last count, it's roughly about maybe 13 or 14 of them, which is a significant number if you consider the fact that there are just about 35 countries
Yeah.
across. So that's, yeah. So for me, I think we need to we need to rethink it, which is if you want registration for, maybe you want to get a sense of what kind of organizations you are regulating. It needs to be clear that that's exactly what you do, and maybe you need to also be very clear to them, or issue like a public, or part of it needs to be clear that, what, yes, we require registration, but it's not a full proof of compliance with the entire law. So that disclaimer needs to be clear, and people get the sense that, okay, it's actually not like, an holiday or a safe harbor. Once I've registered, then it means maybe I've done everything right. You have only done one thing right at best. So I think that clarity is needed, and it needs to be communicated effectively. But another thing I think is a more long-term approach is actually sensitizing both data subjects and the public well enough where the data subject, which means the public, the people, can drive enforcement when they invoke their rights. The data authority also is doing its job, investigating, updating timely on the progress of complaints, and also incentivizing organizations for implementing a comprehensive privacy program. So when you create body of knowledge, you create compliance toolkits that makes it that makes it easier for people to do the things they should do. The information is available. They can even do some things on their own initiative without necessarily bringing in a consultant that might be cost, especially for MSMEs. So I think they can have that longer term approach to compliance than just they come and register and all of these things and collect money, which for me I just think is just one of the things I think they do it is just to create another pipeline for resource or for revenue for the authorities, which isn't bad anyway, considering the fact that they may be poorly funded on sometimes. So yeah. But
Thank
they
you.
need to be clear about what is really meant for and to what extent it really serves.
I mean that gives quite a lot of insight into what should be done, and I totally agree with you. But
Okay.
on to our next question. Are you remember you have three lifelines? So do you think data protection is more of an economic strategy or a human right?
I think you can take a multi-pronged approach. Again, it depends on how it's been implemented in different countries. It could be if it's purely human rights, yes, it protects people, but there are also businesses and there are also business objectives. And I think businesses should do business, but they should do it responsibly within the ambit of what may be permissible by the law. So um, I typically hear people say things like data protection laws are not they don't kill innovations, rather they make innovation safer. They don't kill businesses. They are not clogs on businesses, but rather they make sure businesses are doing things both ethically, legally, and also responsibly. So I think when laws are designed with intentions like that, are not really you know uh, squeeze things. I think it makes it better. Everybody wins.
Yeah, I think I sort of align with what you just said. I think it's a bit of both. Not a bit, it's majorly both of them combined. So I mean,
Yeah.
I know it's my turn to take a question. I'm just thinking of which one I should ask. I feel like this is like a, you have, anyway. Okay, so what is the biggest privacy violation that you have experienced personally?
So I have a small story which I wrote as part of I think the last article I put out. So there was one time I had to use a food app to request for food, and I think I was able to request my first meal, but subsequently they asked me to we're going to do a KYC, and I felt a food app is not necessarily a financial service provider in that sense. You're only meant to facilitate, connect food vendors and the willing buyer. And I honestly felt there was really no because I didn't sign up with it with my real name, so I saw there was no need for them to know who I am. In any event, when they were asking to do KYC for me to upload my ID, I felt uncomfortable. And contrary to Apple's team rules these days, they didn't have an option for me to delete my account within the app. So I had to send them an email that I want my account deleted, and they did. But then, and I felt really proud. Like, yes, because it happened in minutes. I'm not even talking about 5 minutes. They implemented it right immediately. I lost access into the accounts, and it felt really good. But weeks after or days after, I started receiving marketing emails from them, and really do still receive marketing emails from them to date. So at that point in time, I had to go read this service provider. I had to, okay, what do you probably even have in your privacy notice? Then I found out the privacy notice itself was even written in Portuguese and not in English for an English serving audience. So yeah, that was something really concerning. And like what I intend in that my article, it's an organization that has done some form of compliance under local laws, for example. They could easily have put out, also a PR statement saying we've complied with the name of that particular law. But yeah, that's one of the very few personal stories that I have that I think shows sometimes how difficult it is to really do data protection.
wait on. So this question, right? Um, it's more of you're supposed to give us steps as to steps that you would take, right? So if someone stole your identity, what would you do?
Identity theft is one of really those difficult things that you don't want to happen to you. You don't pray it happens to your enemy. It's really so difficult to because it's borderline illegality. So the legal measures that you have might not really catch up so fast. Because at the end of the day, you probably want to involve law enforcement and really
Mm-hmm.
things will not move at your pace. But then one of the key things you really want to do first is locking down on your most important, by priority, notifying your financial service providers or other service providers that you use, for example, that maybe access to maybe your account, for example, should be locked. That this is really happening. But then that's also if you find out, because it's possible, it can go on for a long time and you may never find out.
Exactly.
So, but those are like some of the quick actions you want to take. Ending it is not as straightforward. It might need a lot of changing, changing access to so many accounts that you may have, changing passwords, and it depends on what identity is being stolen itself. If it's like something like a means of identification, I mean, see what we have in the digital lending space where people's numbers are being used to take loans. So it can really be a disaster, and it's borderline illegality. So those legal measures may honestly not work as fast in your favor as you may want them, but they are there, and they are there to exploit as well. But like I said, some of the key things you want to do first is to minimize the impact on you first. That's, I think, should be priority, or one of the priorities rather. Minimizing the impact. From there, law enforcement, hopefully they are able to help you stop the crackdown, or maybe find a technical solution. Maybe people who can do open source intelligence for you to identify who the person is. And, some security expert might also be able to help in that sense. But yeah, um, those are the things I would think about first. Yeah, minimizing the impact. That would be like first line.
I mean, interesting to see, Ridwan, that you mentioned bank account, because I mean that's one really important part of anybody. That's one important thing that everybody will want to protect. But I mean, yeah, really true. You can even go on for years without anybody knowing, and that's why digital footprint. We all need to reduce our digital footprints. I mean, one reason anyway that we need to do that. This next question is sort of like it's sort of something that every privacy everybody in the privacy space has to deal with, right? So talk about a situation where you took a totally normal conversation and turned into a privacy conversation.
Okay, you're asking about situations like that.
Yeah.
When it's people and there is technology, there's likely going to be a privacy issue. So yeah, a simple conversation like that can definitely cascade into a data protection conversation.
Do you want to share? Does any instance come to mind?
Okay, let me think about it.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we recently we're having a conversation. Someone reached out to me about a resource for maybe a research on metaverse, and I think the person was researching the risk, and then going through a rabbit hole, and was just more talking about the risk of, okay, what's the virtual space going to look like, and then in between it, data protection sort of rears its head again, maybe ugly or fine, and I don't know. So I mean, simple, not necessarily simple, but some basic everyday conversation like that can cascade into you know raising privacy dust. Yeah.
I mean, I would say that I've had so many situations like that. I mean, just random family conversations, and everybody just listening. I'm thinking, privacy concern, and I'm skeptical about sharing it because I'm like, I'm not sure they're going to get it. So moving on. So I mean, so this question is totally not privacy related. Top three favorite movies.
I love the Rocky Balboa franchise. I love the Rocky. I love Expendables and How to Win a Christmas. I love that series.
Okay.
Oh,
I've seen that, but I've seen the adverts, but I haven't started watching it. So maybe it's something
You
to do
should
this
start seeing
holiday.
it. You should start seeing it. It's for Christmas. Don't worry. Over the holidays, you can catch up on it.
I really will.
what is your biggest till date? What is your biggest career move? Boldest and biggest. What are they? So I don't know if they're the same or they're different.
I think the craziest decision or craziest career decision I've made was leaving a paying job to start up Tech Hive, to found to start up Tech Hive in 2019, where yeah, I have to say, don't let me get into all the details, but yeah, it was the boldest move that I've made. So before then, I've always had this track record of leaving jobs without necessarily having the next one. So, but then doing it that way at that stage of my life was maybe the boldest thing I've done. And looking back, maybe I isn't so bold, but at that point in time, in that context, was the
Hmm.
boldest move that I've made from a career point.
So just to kind of follow up. Let's complete the question. And I'm not setting you up for a trap here. You can choose not to answer. But what would you say is the career move that you made that you're thinking back on and you're like, maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Definitely will be, and I didn't want it, but then the situation then. I mean, literally can't say the entire details now, but I think it was right after my service year, the first job that I took. I didn't want it. I didn't want to, but the circumstance then made me do it. But then it was one of those things I walked away from too. I just know I wasn't meant to be, and yeah, I did what was best for me. I've never been scared about walking away from things or doing what I consider the best for me. So yeah.
Hmm. I think that's interesting. That's actually interesting.
Yetunde, I hope you're taking
I feel
notes.
like
Well,
asking you.
hope I'm taking
I
notes too.
am. I am. I am absolutely. I mean, I don't even need to take notes since this is a podcast. I'm just going to listen to it again and again and rack up my memories.
Mm, angle.
Exactly. Our number of plays.
What are you guys
Um,
on to?
what are we on to? But like we said, this episode is not really wasn't anything like structured. It was supposed to be a blind episode, so we're just asking you
Now I can
questions.
trust the two of you with my life. Because
A
when you
lot of
speak
our
that way,
questions, a lot of our questions on this episode have actually come from the heart. They're not even. I mean, we have a script of questions that we plan to ask, but we asked a lot of questions that were not even, on the
I don't trust the
on
two
the
of you.
script. This is
We
this
trust
is
you, and
like
that's all that matters.
it's called a trust. You have to do a trust fall sometimes. Just believe that will not lead you astray and just fall. And just fall. Yes, but thank you so much for coming on this episode, Ridwan. I wanted to ask you actually, just because we can ask you because we have you here and you're sitting here, and this is the hot seat that Dolapo and Yetunde have created. I wanted to ask you, what if I asked you to like comment about one thing right now, what would it be? It could be anything. It could be privacy. It could be non-privacy related. It could be anything. Like something that you actually just wanna like just comment about that you feel should be heard about or spoken about.
It definitely has to be your networks.
Okay, so
Shots fired.
I think that if we're going to go into that conversation, we probably would want to mention the name of the networks that are causing this. I think it's just one. Therefore, we use the same service provider, right?
Favorite podcasters, note that you only have one option, right? It's either a yes or yes answer. So, who are your favorite podcasters?
So I'm going to like really confess. Have not. I'm probably a bit of old school, so I've heard very limited podcasts. I can literally count them on my hands. So I'm not sure I've listened to so many
Read one.
enough to
That's
have
the
like.
point. You only have one option. There's like only one correct answer in this situation. There's only one
Okay,
correct
you are my
answer.
favorite podcaster.
Thank you.
Then
And
that's going to make my
yesterday.
life easy. Two of you are my
Exactly.
favorite podcaster.
Exactly. Now you have it right. Well done on this question. That's the best answer you've given all day.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on
Interesting.
the episode, Ridwan. We're glad to have had
But I mean,
a
thank you.
All
fantastic
right.
time with you.
Thank you so much, Ridwan, for doing this with us. I hope you had as much fun as we did. Uh,
No, all I had was bullying, but yeah, it was good. It's been a pleasure being here with you.
Ridwan, the unfortunate thing is that you cannot do anything about it because guess what? You are our executive producer. So I don't really know if there's anywhere where you can throw us, you know?
All right. We stuck. We
Alright.
stuck. We stuck. That's fine then.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone for listening to this episode.
All right. Thank you.
Anyways, until next time.
Yeah, it remains our lovely DPO and I, Yetunde. This episode was sponsored by Ikigai Innovation Initiative and was brought to you by Tech Hive Advisory.
And a big shout out to our executive producer, Ridwan Oloyede, associate producers, Dolapo and Yetunde.
This podcast was edited by Ayonfe Aino, shout out to her, and our podcast associate, Victoria Adaramola, and graphics by Okwe Abujade.